My name is Alicia. I love old books. I love the smell of old paper. I love the feel of old covers. The books in my room are mostly old. Some are very, very old. They have soft pages. The words inside tell wonderful stories. Stories of faraway places. Stories of brave people. Stories of funny animals. I think books are like magic doors. You open a book and you go to a new world. It is a quiet magic. A magic just for you. My grandfather also loved stories. He did not have many books, but he told many stories. He lived in an old house. The house was at the end of a long, quiet street. It had a big garden with tall trees. I loved visiting my grandfather's house. It always smelled like wood and old flowers. My grandfather passed away last year. It made me very sad. I miss his stories. I miss his smile. One day, my mother said, "Alicia, we need to clean grandfather's house." My heart felt a little heavy. Cleaning his house meant he was really gone. But I also felt a little curious. What treasures were hidden in his old house? My grandfather kept many things. He said everything had a story. So I went to my grandfather's house with my mother. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The sun shone through the dusty windows. Dust motes danced in the light. We started in the living room. There were old photos on the wall. My grandfather looked young in some photos. He was smiling. Then we went to his small study. This was his favorite room. It had a big wooden desk. It had one small bookshelf. The bookshelf was full of notebooks. Not storybooks, but notebooks. He wrote things in them. I did not know what he wrote. I was always a little shy to ask. I looked at the bookshelf. It was dusty. I ran my finger over the spines of the notebooks. Then I saw it, tucked at the very end of the shelf, behind a stack of old papers. It was a book. Not a notebook, a real book. It looked very old, much older than any book I owned. Its cover was dark blue leather. The leather was cracked and worn. There was no title on the cover. No words at all, just a faint gold pattern, like little stars. I pulled it out carefully. It was heavy. Heavier than it looked. I felt a little shiver of excitement. This book felt special. It felt like a secret. I sat on the old wooden chair by the desk. I opened the book. The pages were yellow and thick. They smelled like old earth and sweet spice. The words inside were written in a beautiful flowing script. Not printed. Written by hand. It was a story. But I did not recognize the language at first. It was English, but the letters were different. Old English. I turned the pages slowly. My fingers traced the elegant handwriting. Who wrote this? Was it my grandfather? But the writing looked too old. Too fancy. As I turned a page, something small fell out. It landed softly on my lap. It was a piece of paper, folded neatly. It was a hidden note. My heart started to beat faster. A secret note. Inside a secret book. This was like something from one of my own storybooks. I carefully unfolded the note. The paper was thin, almost like a whisper. On it, there were just a few words, written in the same beautiful handwriting as the book. The note said, "Where the sun sleeps, a small treasure waits for a kind heart." Where the sun sleeps? What did that mean? A small treasure, a kind heart. I read the words again and again. Where the sun sleeps. I looked around the dusty study. The sun was bright outside the window. It was coming from the east. So, the sun sleeps in the west. I thought about the house. Which room faced west? I remembered my grandfather's bedroom. His bed was against the west wall. He always said he liked to see the last light of the day. Could the treasure be there? I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. It felt like a game my grandfather left for me. I showed the note to my mother. She smiled. "Your grandfather loved little mysteries," she said. "He always said life is full of small adventures, if you look for them." Her words made me feel brave. It is okay to feel curious, I told myself. It is fun to discover. So I went to my grandfather's bedroom. It was a simple room. A bed, a small table, a wardrobe. The window faced west. The sun was lower in the sky now. Golden light filled the room. "Where the sun sleeps," I whispered. I looked at the wall where the sun would set. There was nothing special there, just a plain wall. I felt a little disappointed. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was just an old note, meaning nothing. But then I remembered my grandfather. He was clever. He liked word puzzles. Where the sun sleeps. Maybe. It was not just about the direction. I sat on his bed. It was covered with a quilt his own mother made, my great-grandmother. It had pictures of stars and moons. The sun sleeps among the stars and moons at night. I looked at the quilt. It was beautiful, full of blues and yellows. I ran my hand over the quilt. It was soft. I felt something hard under one of the embroidered stars. A small lump. My fingers fumbled. There was a tiny pocket sewn into the quilt. So small you would never see it if you did not look closely. My heart jumped. This must be it. With trembling fingers, I opened the tiny pocket. Inside, there was another small folded piece of paper, and something else, something small and cool. I pulled them out. The cool thing was a tiny metal key. It was old and a little rusty. The paper was another note. This one was shorter. It said, "The smallest door holds the biggest story. A small key. A small door. What could it be?" I looked around the room. There were no small doors. The wardrobe had big doors. The room door was big. I thought hard. My grandfather loved miniatures. He had a small ship in a bottle. He had tiny, carved animals. Did he have a tiny house? Or a tiny box? I remembered the big wooden desk in his study. The desk had many drawers, some big, some small. Could one of them be locked? I clutched the small key in my hand. It felt important, like a key to a secret world. I went back to the study. The old book was still on the desk. I placed the key beside it. I looked at the desk. It had 3 big drawers on one side. On the other side, there were 4 very small drawers, stacked one on top of the other. I tried the top small drawer. It opened. It had old pens and clips. The next one also opened. It had stamps. The third one, it was locked. My hand shook a little as I put the tiny key into the lock. It fit perfectly. I turned the key. Click! The sound was soft, but it felt loud in the quiet room. I pulled the drawer open. Inside, there was only one thing: a small, leather-bound diary. It was not as old as the big blue book, but it was clearly old. Its cover was soft brown leather. It had a little strap to keep it closed. My grandfather's initials were pressed into the cover. T.H. Thomas Halloway. That was his name. I felt a wave of emotion. This was his diary, his personal thoughts. Should I read it? It felt very private. But the note said, "The smallest door holds the biggest story." This diary must be the story. Maybe he wanted someone to find it. Someone with a kind heart. I opened the diary. The first page had a date. It was from when my grandfather was a young boy. Much younger than I thought. He was maybe 10 years old. His handwriting was different. Younger. A bit messy, but clear. I started to read. He wrote about his daily life, about his school, about his friends. He wrote about his dreams. He dreamed of being an artist. He loved to draw. He described the birds in his garden. He drew little pictures of them in the margins of the diary. They were simple drawings, but full of life. I read for a long time, page after page. I learned so much about my grandfather. I learned he was shy as a boy, just like me sometimes. I learned he loved adventures in the woods behind his house. He wrote about finding a bird's nest. He wrote about building a small tree house. He wrote about his dog, Spot. There were funny stories too, like the time he tried to bake a cake for his mother. The cake was very flat and a little burnt, but his mother said it was the best cake ever. He wrote, "I think mothers always say that, but it made me happy." I smiled when I read that. My mother says things like that too. Then I found a section about why he stopped drawing. His father, my great-grandfather, told him drawing was not a real job. He said Thomas needed to learn a trade, to be practical. So, my grandfather stopped drawing so much. He learned to be a carpenter. He was a good carpenter. He made beautiful things from wood, like the desk I was sitting at. But in the diary, he wrote, "I still draw in secret. In this book, the pictures in my head need to come out." My heart ached a little for that young boy. He had a dream, and he had to hide it. As I read more, I saw how his love for stories grew. If he could not draw pictures for everyone, he could tell stories. He wrote down ideas for stories. He wrote about characters he imagined. This diary was not just a record of his days. It was a record of his secret heart, his artist heart, his storyteller heart. I felt so close to him in that moment, closer than ever before. I understood why he loved telling me stories. It was his way of sharing his dream, his hidden art. The last entry in the diary was many years later. He was an old man. He wrote, "I found this old diary today. So many memories. Maybe one day someone will find it too. Someone who loves stories. Someone who understands." And then he wrote, "Perhaps my little Alicia." Tears welled up in my eyes. He wrote my name. He knew. He hoped I would find it. I hugged the diary to my chest. It felt like he was there with me, whispering his stories. The treasure was not gold or jewels. It was something much more precious. It was his story, his life, his dreams, and he shared them with me. The old blue book, the one written in fancy script, was probably a book he loved as a boy. A book that inspired him. Maybe it was a family heirloom. The note inside it was his invitation, his clue. I carefully placed the diary and the key back in the small drawer. I would keep them safe. I would read the diary again and again. I would cherish his drawings. My mother came into the study. "What did you find, dear?" she asked gently. She saw the look on my face. I told her everything. About the blue book, about the notes, about the key, about the diary. I showed her his drawings. I read her the last entry. She listened quietly. Her eyes were soft. "Oh, Papa," she whispered. "He was always a dreamer." She smiled at me. "He would be so happy you found it, Alicia. He loved you very much. He knew you had a kind heart and a love for stories, just like him." We spent the rest of the day looking through his other notebooks. Many of them had more story ideas. Some had poems. Some had observations about nature. It was like discovering a hidden part of him, a secret garden of his thoughts. That day changed something in me. My love for books and stories grew even deeper. But now I understood that stories are not just in books. They are in people. They are in old houses. They are in hidden diaries. They are in the memories we share. My grandfather's secret was not a sad secret. It was a beautiful one. It was the story of his quiet passion. And he left it for me to find. It was his last most wonderful story. Now, when I hold an old book, I think of him. I think of the stories hidden inside, not just the words on the page, but the stories of the people who owned the book, who read it, who loved it. Sometimes I feel a little sad that he could not share his art with the world. But then I remember he shared it with me, and that is a very special thing. Maybe in a way I can share his dream too, by loving stories, by sharing stories, by always being curious. It is amazing what you can find when you look closely. An old book, a hidden note, a secret drawer. They can lead you to wonderful discoveries. They can teach you about the people you love. They can teach you about yourself. Maybe you have old things in your house. Maybe your grandparents have stories you have not heard. It is okay to be curious. It is good to ask questions. It is wonderful to listen. Every person has a story. Every object can hold a memory. Finding my grandfather's diary was a gift. It showed me that dreams are important, even if they are quiet dreams. Even if you keep them in a secret diary, they are part of who you are. And sometimes, sharing those dreams even after you are gone is the most beautiful gift of all. I still visit my grandfather's house sometimes. It doesn't feel so empty anymore. It feels full of his stories, full of his presence. And I know he is smiling because his little Alicia, the girl who loves books, found his biggest story. Life is full of small adventures. My grandfather was right. You just need to look for them. You need a kind heart and a curious mind. You can do this too. You can find your own treasures. Keep looking, keep discovering, and always, always cherish the stories. They are what connect us. They are what make us who we are. My grandfather's story is now a part of my story, and I will carry it with me always.